If your cruise visits La Spezia in Italy, or you're considering booking one that does, then this video is definitely for you. La Spezia is a gateway to other Italian attractions rather than a destination in itself. And over the next few minutes we will give you a fantastic overview of your options to make the most of the few hours you will have here and which ones you can realistically do under your own steam. We will briefly cover La Spezia and what it offers visitors if you elect not to wander far from your ship, but the majority of passengers who go ashore here will do so with the intention of visiting one of three places. Firstly, Pisa, just 80 kilometres away and easily reached in the time you have ashore. Next, the stunning region known as Cinque Terre is just 10 kilometres from La Spezia and lends itself as a fabulous, if very busy, area to visit in a day. Lastly, the beautiful city of Florence is 150 kilometres southeast of La Spezia and is offered as an excursion option by most cruise lines. We're going to give you the key information that you need to visit each of these, but first of all let's cover your arrival into La Spezia, where the cruise terminal is, and how it relates to the town and railway station, which you'll probably need to know. Your ship will dock here, and because La Spezia is a working cargo as well as cruise port, you'll have to catch one of the free shuttle buses from your ship's gangway to the terminal. This takes less than 5 minutes and the buses typically run every few minutes. Our first piece of advice is to get off your ship as early as you can. We'd recommend this because it will give you more time at your destination. You're likely to be there in the morning, which is the cooler part of the day in summer and the quietest, and it gives you more time for contingency if things don't go according to plan. If you're visiting Pisa or Cinque Terre under your own steam, then you'll need to get yourself to the railway station, which is about 2 kilometres or 1.5 miles from the cruise terminal. The simplest way is to walk. It's mostly flat and gives you a chance to see some of La Spezia. This takes about 25 minutes. If you prefer, then a taxi ride takes around 10 minutes and costs €15 for up to 4 passengers. Neither Uber nor iTaxi apps work in La Spezia, so you'll need to use one of the local cabs which are typically waiting by the terminal. There are also around 9 buses per hour from near the cruise terminal to the railway station. These cost €1.50 per person each way, and the bus takes just over 10 minutes. You need to either buy a ticket at a tobacconist, mini market, or download the Drop Ticket app and buy one there. Buses depart from Commune, which is here, and drop you off at Via Fiume. Look for number 3, which is the most frequent, and also lines S and L. Whatever you plan to do, it's well worth being clear what your ship's arrival and crucially departure times are. Most arrive between 7 and 8 AM, and whilst some depart as early as 5 PM, others offer an all-aboard time as late as 8 PM. We'll start by covering a trip to Pisa. If you're intending to visit Pisa, then we'd definitely recommend pre-planning your transport. The cheapest and quickest is to use the train. This takes between 40 and 80 minutes each way depending on whether you select an express or a regional train. There's a good selection departing La Spezia Centrale between 7 AM and 10 AM, but after that there's no service until after 1300 during the week. At weekends, the service during the latter part of the morning is slightly better. The faster trains are the longer distance Freccia or intercity trains. These are cheaper if you book in advance. Expect to pay just under €10 each way if you book a week or more ahead, but €15 to €20 each way if you buy on the day. And you need to be aware that these trains can fill up, so you are not guaranteed to get on if you haven't booked. If you go on a slower regional train, then advanced booking isn't required and doesn't make it cheaper. These are just over €8 each way, but you can't use regional train tickets on the express services. The best way to buy train tickets to Pisa is on the Trenitalia app. This can be downloaded before you leave home, tickets purchased and stored away in the app as a QR code to show the ticket inspector. Just remember that advanced tickets, although cheaper, are fixed times and have rules about changes. Make sure you're clear from the app about requirements to validate your ticket. Even if your ship docks at 8 AM, you should be able to get to Pisa by 10:25. If all aboard time is 5 PM, then the 2:56 is probably the very latest train you would want to catch back giving you at least 4 hours to explore Pisa. On arrival at Pisa Centrale, you'll most likely want to head straight to Piazza dei Miracoli, which is where the famous tower is located. This will take around 25 minutes to walk. The earlier you get there, the better. Whilst the tower captures many of the headlines, the area includes some other stunning architecture such as the cathedral and baptistry, all within the same area. Rising above the square are the walls of Pisa, which we'd recommend as an option if you don't mind climbing a few stairs. The walls stretch for about 3 kilometres in total and cost €6.50 to enter. We recommend booking in advance as they can get full. A good option is to walk along the walls as far as you like to the east, turn around and then leave at Bagni di Nerona to visit Piazza dei Cavalieri, which you should also be on your list to visit. The great thing about Pisa is that it's relatively compact, so you can easily add in other sites if time allows. If you're looking for an authentic bite to eat, then we'd recommend sampling one of the focaccia. La Focacceria dei Sani felt very authentic to us and came well recommended. Plan your return train carefully and leave plenty of time for delays and to get yourself back to your ship. Now, another popular option from La Spezia for cruise guests, which is easy to self-guide, is to visit one or more of the 5 small towns which make up the Cinque Terre region, starting just up the coast from La Spezia. However you choose to visit, it's worth being aware that they are very touristy and crowded during the tourist season. The 2 main ways to see them are by ferry or by train. The ferry comes well reviewed and timetables and prices for 2025 are on the screen now. However, it takes over 2 hours to get to the furthest town, Monterosso, and we have seen comments about boats sometimes not being able to dock due to high swell or boats being full and guests being unable to get a place. The train is a great option, with a frequent service between La Spezia and the 5 Cinque Terre towns of Rio Maggiore, Manarola, Corniglia, Vernazza and Monterosso. There are 3 regional trains per hour in each direction, and the journey to the furthest town, Monterosso, takes just 22 minutes, and these trains all stop at each of the 5 Cinque Terre towns. We cover ticket prices in a few moments. In our view, one of the key attractions of the region is the ability to walk, or should we say hike, between the towns along a series of very well marked and signed footpaths which hug the rugged coastline and afford stunning views. If you're able and moderately fit, it's possible to walk between at least 2 of the towns during your cruise stop. If your ship has a particularly long stop, then it might be possible to do as we did and hike between the most northerly, Monterosso, and the most southerly, Rio Maggiore. However, you'd have to be a keen hiker to do so in the middle of summer. You should be aware that the paths get crowded at times, and the authorities sometimes put a one-way system in place during peak times between Monterosso and Vernazza, the 2 most northerly towns, which means that you can only walk southbound. A good thing in our experience, since the path is narrow in places and stopping for walkers coming the other way creates quite big queues. It's also worth noting that the park, in theory, has a rule about wearing suitable footwear, which includes a ban on walking the trails in sandals. We've also seen plenty of reports that this is not enforced. However, the nature of the trails are such that we'd strongly recommend packing a decent pair of walking shoes or trainers. We'd suggest that you don't underestimate the amount of climbing and descending on some of the trails. Monterosso to Vernazza is probably the kindest on the knees, and also, along with the Path of Love, which we talk about in a moment, the busiest. Keep an eye out for up-to-date information about closures of some trails due to weather or landslides. At the time of filming this, the direct trail between Corniglia and Manarola was closed, forcing you to use the alternative longer trail which takes you further away from the coast and which also includes much more up and down. If you're planning to do any walking along the organised routes, then you must purchase a pass known as a Cinque Terre card for the national park. To be clear, you do not need the pass just to visit the towns. These passes are best bought online, and you will need to either have it available on your phone or print it out to show the wardens who police the routes. They come in 2 main forms, one which only grants access to the park and thus the hiking, and one which bundles this with a train pass which gives you unlimited travel between La Spezia and Monterosso and all stops in between. The 2025 prices are shown on the screen now. Depending on your plans, if you do the maths, whilst you might find it cheaper to buy separate train tickets and a pass, we'd suggest that the convenience of having it all in one place makes it worth buying the integrated rail and hiking card. You can buy this card at La Spezia train station, but expect a long queue to do so, hence the advice to buy online. If you just buy the train tickets, then it'll cost you €16 return to any of the Cinque Terre stations from La Spezia. There are also occasional intercity trains between La Spezia and Monterosso. These are not included in the Cinque Terre card, and these don't stop at the intermediate towns. Another thing to note is that one of the paths from Manarola to Rio Maggiore is known as the Path of Love, and, because of its popularity, it is not included in the standard Cinque Terre card. It requires the purchase of a more expensive card or payment of a one-off supplement of €10 per person. There's an alternative route which is included in the standard card, which is quite challenging but at the same time very pretty, and offers a fascinating view of the pulley system used to move goods up and down the steep hills between habitations. The third main excursion option from La Spezia is Florence, spelt Firenze in Italian. Because of the distance involved and the risks of misconnections or bad traffic, our advice is that if you want to see Florence, you should bite the bullet and either take an excursion organised by your cruise ship or by a third party. It is possible to get there by train, but the journey time is typically over 2 hours in each direction. Most services are by regional trains, which are not the most comfortable for journeys of that length. If you're trying to decide which of the three options to take, then our suggestion is that you lean towards visiting Cinque Terre. It is quite unique, and whilst crowded, the reality is that beautiful cities like Rome, Pisa and Florence are easy to package together in a tour of Italy, whereas Cinque Terre is less likely to be on your radar. So this might be a great opportunity to tick off a part of Italy which we think should be on your bucket list. So what about La Spezia itself? We'll be honest, rather like Civitavecchia, which is the gateway port for Rome, La Spezia is not the most beautiful destination. If you're keen to get off the ship, then a couple of hours strolling along the promenade and then heading inland to one of the piazzas to enjoy an ice cream is by no means an unpleasant experience. However, if you're not inclined to do an excursion, then La Spezia might be the right port to enjoy your ship in relative peace and quiet while everyone else is off exploring. Now we hope that you found this guide useful. If so, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. If your ship visits Civitavecchia, then one of these 2 videos is an essential watch. Thanks for watching and ciao!